In a nutshell, I liked this book, but it had just maybe too much about welding. Hello BookTube, I'm here today with a book review for the book Artemis, which is the second book written by Andy Weir. Andy Weir famously wrote The Martian a couple of years ago and it just took off. I'm assuming you've heard of it by now, but if not, The Martian is about a single man who's trapped on the face of Mars all by himself and who has to survive by his own wit and ingenuity. I loved The Martian. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I still haven't seen the movie, but I'm getting to it. And so Artemis has been eagerly awaited by a lot of people. A lot of people want to know if Andy Weir could top The Martian, and so I think he's done a pretty good job with Artemis. I think this is definitely a really solid second novel by him. It's quite different, but it's also fairly similar. It has the trademark qualities that we've come to expect from Weir. It has a lot of the science involved. We have a lot of sort of the scientific we have a lot of the similar scientific thought experiments that we did from The Martian. We have a lot of the problem solving that inside. We get this similar snarky, sassy character, and so Artemis takes place on the moon. Artemis is the name of the colony on the moon. About a couple thousand people live there. It's a small town, and our main character is Jazz. She is a 26-year-old woman, and by day she is a porter who doesn't make very much money, and by night she is a smuggler, and she smuggles in goods for the city that are illegal. And she makes a fair bit of money doing this. But her motivation throughout the entire book is always money. She is motivated by money and we don't always know why. That's one of the bigger questions that we have. And she gets herself tangled up in some messy business and has to get herself out. That's all I can really say about the plot without giving too much away, but it is very fast-paced. It is definitely a page-turner. I read this book relatively quickly. Within a matter of days. I could have easily read it within one day, but I was pressed for time, so I didn't have as much time to read as I would have liked. The one thing is there is definitely a lot more about welding in this book than there was in The Martian. I actually, in the science in this book, I understood the science less in this book than I did in The Martian, and I think that might just have to do with my own academic background, but this one is a bit more technical, where the other one was, and this is a bit more technology based, I would say, whereas the other one is more had more to do with the life sciences and things like that, because he was talking about how to support a whole person. But the world is so imaginative. It's really easy to understand the process of how people are able to live on the moon, and it's so imaginative and original, and it's nothing that I've ever read before. And because of that, it kept my interest, it kept me intrigued, and I just wanted to keep reading more and more. The few weaknesses that this book has is that Jazz supposedly comes from a Muslim background, and she has a bit of an estranged relationship with her father, and she is no longer a Muslim, but she was raised that way. But it doesn't come across. We're told that she was raised Muslim, but it doesn't come across at all in her behavior. As someone who, I wasn't raised Muslim, but I was raised devoutly Christian, if you are raised very devout, it does impact the way that you behave, and that didn't come across at all in her behavior. She swears a lot, and she's not promiscuous, but she has no qualms about sex. And there's nothing wrong with those things. It's just that those are things that if you are, raised religious, you are a bit apprehensive about. And she shows no such qualms. And I found that to be a bit unrealistic. So there were a few like minor characterization flaws that I would say that I was just nitpicking at, that would just jar me out of the world. Also as well, some people have argued that Weir was unable to portray Jazz well because she is a woman and he is a man writing about a woman. I didn't necessarily find that to be so. Again, I did find flaws with her characterization, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it was sexist or anything like that. And as anyone knows, I'm a big feminist, and I'm, not shy to call people out about sexist tropes or anything like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. If I could give it half stars, I'd probably give it like 3.75. I know that's a 3/4 star and not half. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very fast paced. I would definitely recommend this to someone who maybe an engineer or who doesn't necessarily read a lot. There isn't necessarily a lot of literary value, but there's a lot of entertainment value. And I'd also recommend this to someone who was in a reading slump and needed something fast-paced. There's also really touching moments as well too. The other characters are interesting and interesting to read about, and yeah, I enjoyed it. So that is my review for Artemis by Andy Weir. Let me know what you thought about it, if you've read the book at all, or if you are hoping to read it, or if you're going to give this one a pass. I know some other people have reviewed it on BookTube, and I looked at the reviews because I was debating whether or not to buy it. And so feel free to comment. I want to hear from you, and I will see you next time. Bye!